Welcome to the Navigator podcast. Hello, welcome to the Navigate Academy, Module 43, Running a High-Performance Service Organization. Our guest today is Steve Riley, who brings over 25 years of experience in systems integration in a wide range of roles and responsibilities. He has held department management, regional leadership, and multiple corporate positions overseeing operations and service with a new role of Director of Global Professional Services for PSNI Global Alliance, with hundreds of locations across the globe. So it's keeping you busy, Steve.
Very busy. Yes, keeping me on my toes for sure.
Awesome. So Steve is continually striving to improve how this industry implements its service and support offerings. An accomplished trainer, he has taught courses for AVIXA, including the CTSI, and he has led various other industry initiative committees. He holds the CTSD and CTSI from AVIXA and the RCDD from BICSI. Steve, thanks for bringing your expertise to this module's discussion.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
You're one of my favorite presenters, so we're always glad to have you back. So we shared the results of several associations' polls on the service challenges they are experiencing. What do you see as the root cause or causes of these challenges?
You know, in just about every case that I see, service isn't a priority within the organization, which is odd because it's been such a focus for our industry for such a long time. I mean, 10 years, it's been a focus for multiple industry associations to try to promote the managed services element of business. And for whatever reason, it's not becoming really the impetus of what an organization needs to run on. I see that. I see service departments that are understaffed and that are worked pretty hard. I see, sales incentive plans that aren't geared towards selling service. So really, I see multiple root causes, but it really all boils down to whether or not it's a priority within the organization. And
Right.
if it is, then that tends to make a big difference.
I mean, I talked in the module that the industry is often views itself as a second-class citizen, and then they view service as like a third class. And it's just
Right.
it's changing that culture. What differentiates, and I know we're on a theme today, but what differentiates a company that really has a culture of service?
You know, it's more than walking around saying service is our priority. It needs to become part of the decision-making process of the leaders within the company, right? So I like to ask the question, when I was in leadership in multiple companies, I would ask the question, will this choice result in a better client experience, right? So once we get to that juncture and you got to make a key decision that's strategy-wise, you need to think about everything that's going to play into that. And managed services, if you're going to make that a priority, then it needs to be part of your everyday decisions. And the other piece to that, there's a lot of companies that still reward their salespeople on project performance, which I guess they should, but it tends to be the emphasis of the company to reward on project performance rather than managed services performance. And I think that goes a long way into making that a key part of the culture.
Well, and we talked about just, again, that the prerequisites, but that relationship, service is a 10 to 15 year relationships. And when you talk about, again, performance or customer experience, it's more than the project experience, because that's transitory.
It's
and
very
temporary.
temporary.
Yep. So when we think about like the prereqs, and you and I have worked together many times in terms of just laying out from sales all the way through the transition to service, on your most mature companies, what do they do in making all those prereqs a reality?
It starts at the top in every single case. You've got to have the executive team on board with that initiative, but strategically, there needs to be representation of service on the executive team. And I see so many companies making a mistake and not doing that, folding service into whether it's into operations or engineering, whatever the case. where it really should be represented solely at the executive level.
Yeah,
So
based on the profit it can bring in, I mean, it truly is a big difference to the company.
you get enough recurring revenue going, and what you'll find is it becomes the heartbeat of the financial flow within your organization. And then through performance planning and incentives, you can steer that ship to the service first mentality.
Got it. So when you think of like the building blocks, metrics, process, agreements, tracking, understanding your warranty, where do most companies struggle?
All the above.
Okay.
But
then we could probably talk about, what's the cause? It's the executives.
Yeah. So I would just like to say that there's, in every organization I've looked at and been a part of, there was a lot of leakage, is what I call it.
Okay.
And leakage is when you're performing work for a customer if you're not charging for. And warranty is a big one, right? That's the one that I seem to fight the most. Is I've been in companies where the question would be asked, well, why would we need to sell a service agreement when we've got a warranty in place for a year? Well, warranty covers different things, and I think a lot of people confuse that for what it's meant to be for. And service agreements cover a different set of tasks associated with that project and with that space. So I like to make sure that people understand the difference between the two, and I think getting that nailed down and getting that ingrained within the mentality of the sales team goes a long way towards that.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, I'll be being 100%. They use them interchangeably, and then it's like, well, I can't sell a service because they confuse it with warranty. I'm like, no, you confuse it with warranty.
Right.
Yeah. So you're working around the globe, over 100 companies, lots of countries. Is any book guiding the way, or a general principle that's?
Yeah. So I've actually been working on reading the book, Bridging the Services Chasm. It's by Thomas Law, I think is how you pronounce it, L-A-H. That's how you spell the last name. But it talks about specifically creating comprehensive framework to make strategic decisions with managed services in mind, right? So it's really good about formulating strategy around managed services within your organization, and I find it fascinating.
Look at it, it ties into everything you've talked about today, which is it starts at the top.
It does.
Yeah, and I think you've proven that out again with over 100 companies. You're probably in this conversation again and again. And you're like going, feels like wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of really, and I want to make sure I get this across too. We have a lot of really high performing service organizations as well.
Yep.
It's really just a big gamut, and it's not just within our organization, it's across the industry. What I see is more of a microcosm, but it's a snapshot of what I see everywhere in the industry. And, like I said, we've got some high performers, and then we've got guys that need help just like anybody else.
Yep. Well, I think what you're seeing is that you're moving it from hope to the fulfillment of strategy.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You bet.